My name's Lindsay. I work for the EON Foundation in the Northern Territory of Australia. Today I want to talk to you about blanching your vegetables, or vegetables and fruit. And this is especially helpful when you've had a good crop and you've grown too much of one variety or another and you want to store them. Here I've got tomatoes that I picked out of my own garden recently. There's too many to eat, so I'm going to blanch some of them and freeze them so that I can use them at another time. There's two types of blanching. The first would be if you half cook a vegetable like beans so that you can freeze them. But we're going to peel the skin off these tomatoes through the process of blanching, and I'm going to show you how to do that so then you can cook them or freeze them. The first thing that you've got to do in the process of blanching is to cut the core out of your tomatoes. You need a sharp knife because you really need to cut quite deep to get the core sometimes. Turn your tomato over and score a cross on the underside. Don't cut it too deep, you only need it shallow so that it cuts through that little bit of skin. Go through all of your tomatoes that you're wanting to blanch and get them all ready before you start the next step. You need a pot of boiling water. Now this water needs to be deep enough so that your tomatoes float. Let them sit in that boiling water for 20 seconds and then drop them immediately into some freezing cold water. Do this in your sink, have some ice floating in the water so that you know that it's cold. And once they've been in there for about a minute, you'll find that the skin peels off them as easy as anything that you've done. It looks really quite good actually. And you'll find that if you've got any blemishes on your tomatoes, you can just cut that piece out, because after all we're going to chop the tomatoes up into pieces in due time anyway. So there's your tomatoes, ready to be cooked. Now we've blanched 28 tomatoes here. What we're going to do is chop these up, cook them in a pot with some onion, and then we're going to keep some for immediate use and we're going to freeze some for use later on. You don't need to cook your tomatoes completely, because when you take them out later you're likely to be cooking them again. With what I've got left here, I'm going to fill up 2 jars with the tomato and onion, and I'm going to put the rest into plastic bags that I can freeze. And so I've written tomato and onions September 2020, so that when I take it out of the freezer I know when it was put in there. And I think that when I take out a block of tomato and onions I could even chop it in half and use half at a time. So that gives you some ideas of how you might preserve your fruit and your vegetables and how you might be able to store them until you're ready to use them.